Satan's final destiny and eternal victory. Imagine a world where darkness seems to be winning. Where evil forces, such as shadows, prowl everywhere, trying to deceive and destroy. An invisible battle between good and evil unfolds before our eyes, and often, it seems that the evil side is winning. But what if I told you that there is an incredible story that reveals the outcome of this fight? A story that talks about courage, faith, and the final victory of light over darkness. At the heart of this narrative, we find a much-feared character, Satan. He started out as a beautiful angel, but, corrupted by ambition and pride, he became humanity's greatest enemy. And as he seeks to spread fear and despair, trying to make us believe that there is no hope, God has a plan that will change everything forever. Let's together explore the events leading up to your final destination. You can feel the chill down your spine at the thought of a horrible dragon, representing all that is evil and treacherous. And even with your heart racing, get ready for the thrilling reveal, an epic battle, where good rises, and light triumphs over darkness. In this video, you will hear about how, at a decisive moment, God will bring about the justice we all hope for. Just like in a fairy tale, where the hero always finds a way to win, the story culminates in a great victory, which will not only end the age of evil, but establish a new kingdom of peace and joy forever. Get ready, because the story that unfolds is full of twists and turns and full of hope, showing that even in the darkest hours, God's light shines brightest. Let's find out together what happens when Satan's fate is sealed, and eternal victory is finally revealed. The origin of spiritual warfare. The fall of Lucifer, the angel who rebelled against God, was cast out of heaven and became Satan, the adversary. The origin of spiritual warfare begins in heaven, a place of absolute perfection, where God created spiritual beings called angels. They were made to serve God and live in harmony, praising Him and doing His bidding. One of these angels was Lucifer, whose name means light bearer. He was no ordinary angel, he was one of the most powerful and glorious of all, a cherub who occupied a position very close to God. Her beauty was incomparable, and her wisdom profound. He was created to reflect the glory of God, but something terrible happened in his heart. Lucifer began to be filled with pride. He looked at his own greatness and thought, "Why should I serve God? I am so beautiful, so powerful, so wise. I could be like God." And it was there that sin first entered creation. Lucifer's pride led him to desire the throne of God. He didn't want to be just a servant anymore, he wanted to be the sovereign. And in his heart, he made a plan: he would rebel against God and take control of heaven. But Lucifer was not alone. He persuaded a third of the angels to follow him in his rebellion. With deceitful words and empty promises, he persuaded these angels to join him, promising them power and freedom. They believed that they could defeat the Creator himself. Just imagine, creatures that God had made, now turning against his throne, trying to steal his glory. However, their rebellion did not go unnoticed. God, who knows all things, saw what was happening. And just like that, a war broke out in the sky. Michael, the archangel faithful to God, and his angels fought against Lucifer and his followers. The battle was fierce, but God's power was infinitely greater. Lucifer and his rebellious angels were defeated. They lost their place in heaven and were expelled. Lucifer, the glorious angel, now became Satan, the adversary, the accuser. He was cast down to earth with the other fallen angels, who became the demons. Satan has not been able to seize the throne of God, but he has not given up his hatred and rebellion. Since then, he has sought to destroy all that is good and to turn mankind away from God's path. This moment marks the beginning of a spiritual battle that lasts to this day, an invisible war between the forces of good and evil. Satan, with all his pride and desire to be like God, has become creation's greatest enemy, always plotting against God's plan and trying to drag mankind away from the Creator. But from the beginning, God had a plan to defeat Satan once and for all, a plan that would involve a savior who would crush the serpent's head. And so began the great spiritual battle, a fight that goes beyond what meets the eye but impacts the hearts and destiny of all of us. The promise of redemption. In the Garden of Eden, God promises the coming of a savior after the fall of man, announcing the future victory over evil. The story of the promise of redemption begins in a place of pure beauty and harmony, the Garden of Eden. God had created everything to perfection: the sky, the earth, the seas, the plants, and the animals. And at the height of his creation, he made man and woman, Adam and Eve, in his own image. They lived in communion with God, in an intimate and full relationship. In the garden, there was no pain, suffering, or evil. Adam and Eve had everything they needed and lived in peace. But there was only one rule: they could not eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. However, the enemy, Satan, had already been cast out of heaven, as we saw at the origin of the spiritual battle, and he would not rest. Disguised as a serpent, Satan approached Eve. With cunning and deceit, he made her question the goodness of God, and temptation grew in her heart. "Did God really say that they cannot eat from any tree?" asked Satan. Eve replied that they could eat from all but that one tree, for if they did, they would die. But the serpent, with his lies, insisted, "You will certainly not die. Indeed, God knows that in the day you eat, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like him, knowing good and evil." It was at that moment that Eve looked at the forbidden fruit with different eyes. It seemed so desirable, so beautiful. So she picked it up and ate it. And immediately afterwards he also offered it to Adam, who accepted it and ate. At that moment, something terrible happened. Their eyes opened, and they realized they were naked, a symbol of their lost innocence. For the first time, fear, shame, and guilt invaded their hearts. The perfect relationship they had with God was broken. When God called for Adam in the garden, they hid. Something they had never done before. They were afraid of God, for they knew they had disobeyed. God asked Adam, "Have you eaten of the fruit of the tree which I commanded you not to eat?" Adam, instead of taking responsibility, blamed Eve. Eve, in turn, blamed the serpent. Sin had entered the world, bringing separation between man and God. God, being just, pronounced judgment on sin. He declared that because of disobedience, pain, suffering, and death would now be a part of everyone's life. Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, and access to the tree of life was blocked. It seemed like the end. Evil had triumphed, and paradise had been lost. But even in that moment of darkness, God, in his mercy, gave a promise. He spoke directly to the serpent, who symbolized Satan, saying, "I shall put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He will bruise your head, and you will bruise your heel." Genesis 3 verse 15. This was the first promise of redemption, a prophecy about the future. A descendant of the woman would come, and though Satan would smite him, this Savior would crush the serpent's head, bringing ultimate victory over evil. That promise lit a light of hope. Even in the midst of the trial, God revealed his plan to restore what had been lost. He would not abandon mankind to sin and destruction. There would be a Savior, someone who would rescue creation from darkness and defeat Satan once and for all. This promise is at the heart of the entire history of the Bible. From that day on, all of human history has revolved around this promise.